So you're having a party and you're trying to figure out how much alcohol to buy. Hi, I'm Brittany, owner of Milk and Honey Bartending, and you're watching Milk and Honey TV. Okay, so you're having a party and you're trying to figure out how much alcohol to buy. Those Pinterest calculators or alcohol calculators, they're not the most reliable tool to use when it comes to guesstimating how much alcohol to get for your party or celebration. So you'll probably either DIY your bar and intend to have like a self-service situation, or you're more than likely are just trying to plan ahead for budgeting reasons before hiring your bar staff. You're looking for an accurate, straightforward, to the point number. So you probably come across those Pinterest calculators or one of those alcohol calculators. Out of my years of behind the bar experience, those are not reliable tools to use. And here's why. If you look at any alcohol calculator or the Pinterest spreadsheets with the alcohol calculators, you'll notice that they give you a pretty basic general idea on how to calculate the amount of alcohol to actually provide for your party. So from what I've been seeing and what I've been hearing, people are basically calculating 1 drink per person per hour. And out of my years of behind the bar experience, whether that's real world bartending in bars, restaurants, nightclubs, sports bars, pubs, the list goes on. In addition to private events such as birthday parties, weddings, corporate events, even baby showers, I'm here to tell you, nobody drinks like that. Nobody drinks 1 drink per hour. Now I get it. The general idea is to calculate 1 drink per person per hour, and that's supposed to basically factor in those that drink more or less, and it's supposed to even out. But even so, no. So here's a fun fact. I actually used one of those alcohol calculators before that I found on Pinterest just to see. I just wanted to see. Now I knew better because, again, I have years of experience with the way that people drink. I've been serving a variety of different types of people for years, so I pretty much know how it goes. But I was just curious to see how accurate these numbers really were. So I went and I used a Pinterest calculator for a client's event. Now it was beer and wine service only, so I used I can't remember exactly which one I used, but I remember using, because this was a while ago, but I remember using the basically like the alcohol buying guide based on just beer and wine options. And I can tell you, like, I felt so bad when it came to the end of the event, because these people left with so much extra stuff, And it was mainly because I used the Pinterest calculator. Now, mind you, I'm looking at, when I did the calculations using the alcohol calculator, I was looking at the numbers and I was also comparing it to my personal notes on how I calculate how much alcohol to suggest to a client. And it just was not adding up. Like, my calculation seemed way more realistic than what I was seeing on this alcohol calculator that I got off Pinterest. And it was significantly more. And I'm just looking like, that's a lot. Like, it was a lot. But I was just like, you know what? Go with it. Let's just see. And it's embarrassing because, like, I had these people buy so much stuff unnecessarily. And this is why Pinterest calculators don't work, because they cannot factor in the way people truly drink. And it doesn't factor in key components that determine how much alcohol you'll actually need. And here are the factors you'll need to consider when trying to calculate how much alcohol to get. The event type. What kind of event are you having? Is it a birthday party? Is it a wedding? Is it a corporate function? A launch party? A baby shower? Different events account for the way people drink, believe it or not. A wedding, for example, where people are there to celebrate and have a good time, are likely to drink way more in comparison to, say, a company function where more casual and people tend to drink a lot less. The number of guests. I think that goes without saying. You're gonna need to know how many people are gonna be consuming these drinks in order to kind of guesstimate how much you're gonna need. Based on what I know, people are starting out with at least 2 to 3 drinks for the first hour. And then the second hour, we're moving toward like 1, maybe 2, depending. None of this is like set in stone. It all just depends on a lot, really, because even with your number of guests, so let me finish. So your number of guests, how many people are you serving? Number of hours, the time of day, the actual day. People tend to drink depending on the day. Is it during the weekday or is it the weekend? People tend to drink, you guessed it, more on the weekends. Like a Monday through Thursday sort of situation, people tend to drink less than on maybe a Friday or Saturday night. Who are your guests? Is it close family and friends because you're getting married? Or is it colleagues because you're having an office party just to have a happy hour? Just to have a happy hour. Will there be kids around? Because also that's a factor. A lot of kids, people tend to drink less. No kids, people gonna drink a whole lot more. What is happening? This crazy. It's so difficult trying to film this later in the day. Cree's home. It's rush hour traffic. I live in the city. This is urgent, okay? Anyway, I would just keep going. Your location, your venue. Is it a house party at someone's home? People tend to drink more when they're comfortable in the comfort of, their friends and family's home versus, again, an office party where you're at work. And what type of event host are you? Are you one of those people where running out of anything would be devastating? Or are you one of those people where I'm just gonna get what I'm gonna get and once it's gone type of host? And then from there, it'll better help you navigate what to actually make available. So when you consider things like the type of event that you're having, your number of guests, your type of guests, like who's gonna be there, time of day, the day of the week, the number of hours, maybe even the season, depending. Yeah, you also want to consider the season when you're trying to determine actually what to get for your event bar, your location, and whether or not you're okay with running out. From there, you can decide on what you actually want to serve. Do you want to do full open bar? Full open bar is everything. So for a full open bar, you got vodka, gin, rum, tequila, bourbon, whiskey. In some cases, you might want to do a cognac, a brandy, a scotch. I'd even want to throw in some liqueurs like a triple sec, orange liqueur, maybe even some elderflower, depending, and also beer and wine. In my professional opinion, full open bar is completely unnecessary. It gives just too many options. Like, unless you're throwing an event where it's, I don't know, maybe 150 to honestly even 200. I would honestly start at like the 200 range before you really starting to get into like the full open bar thing. And if it's like an event where you don't really know your guest list type of thing, if you're doing something like I don't know, a block party, for example, you're not really sure what type of people to expect. Like you know what type of people to expect, but you're not really sure like everybody's spirit preferences. So depending, full open bar really, for the most part, full open bar really isn't even necessary. But that's when we get into, honestly, my highly suggested option, which is what we call a modified bar. So a modified bar is basically just a few spirit options plus beer and wine. And with a modified bar, I always suggest the most popular spirits, which is vodka, tequila, and bourbon. With those three options, I mean, you can pretty much accommodate everyone there when you also include beer and wine. But keep in mind, with both of those options, whether you do full open bar or a modified bar, you'll want to include beer and wine as an available option. Typically, you won't need much because when it comes to cocktails, beer and wine typically go ignored. But there's always like a few here, a few there that will prefer beer or prefer wine over cocktails, or may enjoy a cocktail and then maybe wants to switch to beer or wine. Or are you doing just strictly beer and wine only? Now, moving into the beer and wine only service option, that can be a little tricky because I can tell you from personal experience, don't nobody want that. Like, especially like, more so I only see this option when it comes to weddings. Nobody wants beer and wine. I'm here to tell you. Anytime that I've done beer and wine service, people are always kind of like looking at us sideways like, where the liquor at? I mean, but beer and wine options can be really beneficial or even a necessity depending, because in some cases, again, depending on where you have it, your venue, some venues only allow beer and wine options. They don't allow any hard liquor, or it can be for budgeting reasons. So you want to keep cost on the lower end, you'll probably want to do beer and wine. But then even so, there's other ways of going about having an event bar and being budget friendly. So again, going back to the modified bar, you don't necessarily even have to do 3 spirit options. You can do 1 spirit option with beer and wine. Ultimately, a good rule of thumb is at least have 1 to 2 types of spirit options plus beer and wine. Also, another thing to keep in mind when it comes to beer and wine, you'll want to consider, you know, the types of beer, the types of wine. Again, these go back to, you know, the season and who your event guests are and how long your event will be. But you got, you know, your domestics and imports, you got your craft beers, you got your red and white wines. So depending on, for example, the season, the time of year, whether it's spring and summer or fall and winter, that'll determine and help navigate in which direction you should go in terms of what to provide and what to have available. In your spring and summer months, you'll need more white wine than you will red wine. In your fall and winter months, you'll need more red wine than you will white wine. Then an extra thing just to consider, and it can be important, but not like a huge game changer, but also consider your food. So are you doing, you know, burgers and fries? I've had clients that did like a burger and fry food truck or a pizza food truck. Is it gonna be a 3-4 course meal? I also had a client where they did a variety of sushi. Like they had a team of sushi chefs. They had a team of sushi. They had a team of sushi chefs come in and prepare this coursed out sushi menu, excuse me, will significally determine how much alcohol you should buy. The heavier the food, the more they'll drink. The lighter the food, typically, the less they'll drink. Okay, so I mean, ultimately, I don't know if you got the hint by now, but in this video, I can't tell you exactly how much to get because there's too many factors to consider. And if I don't know the details of your event, I can't necessarily tell you how much to get. But a good rule of thumb is, in my opinion, I will always and forever suggest a modified bar. You can be safe and accommodate most of your guests by doing 3 spirit options, beer and wine. Now with a modified bar, vodka, tequila, and bourbon. Then with your beer and wine options, you can go a domestic and import option plus a craft beer option. When it comes to wine, do a red, do a white. With a modified bar, when you're providing spirits, when it comes to beer and wine, you really won't need much because a lot of people completely like disregard beer and wine when there's tequila available, when there's vodka available, when there's bourbon available. Another thing that also be considered that alcohol calculators don't factor in or can't factor in is the ABV, the alcohol by volume. Now, when it comes to spirits, it just depends on the cocktail. There's a huge difference between a lemon drop and an old fashioned, for example. Generally speaking though, most cocktails typically require a 1.5 to 2 ounce pour. For something like a lemon drop, depending, you're looking at a 1.5 to 2 ounce pour. For something like an old fashioned, for example, you're looking at least a minimum, a 2 ounce pour. And then when it comes to beer, for example, going back to the event where I suggested how much beer and wine to get, the alcohol calculator had them overbuying because it didn't account for the fact that when it comes to beer and considering the ABV, your domestic or import beers, those tend to be in your 3%, 5%, maybe even 6% range per beer. And then when you get into your craft beers, those tend to have a higher alcohol by volume, a higher ABV. We're looking, and it depends though with the craft beer, because there are some beers that are what are considered session beers or crushable beers. They're craft, but they're lighter in alcohol. So we're talking like the same amount for a domestic or import beer, anywhere between 3 and 5%. So people can drink more of those than say a classic craft like an IPA, or maybe even like a something like a Scotch ale. Those tend to be in like, they start around probably like 6 and they go to like 8. I've had beer and seen beer that has gone up to like 14%. There's some that are even higher than that. But then also too, it also does not account for the carbonation in beer. It's only so much beer that a person can drink because beer sits heavy, especially when you account for the type of food that people are eating. Beer and carbonation, the carbonation in beer can make people drink a lot less, depending. But then you also got to factor in male and female. Like, it's so much to consider. It's really hard to just, hey, this is how much you need. Like, I don't know who your guests are. I don't know who you're serving. I don't know, where the event is going to take place. I don't know what kind of celebration you're having. So it's literally impossible for me to just give a general number on how to calculate how much alcohol to buy. When you consider wine, for example, whether you're doing beer and wine service or not, beer and wine only service or not, a standard wine pour is 5 ounces. Anyway, again, I can't stress or reiterate it enough. It's literally impossible for me to just sit here and be like, oh, well, you're having 100 people for 4 hours. You need to get this. I guess, for example, if you're having like a wedding and you're expecting, let's say, 100 people for 4 hours, and you want to do a modified bar. Let's go 2 signature cocktails, a his and hers, or a hers and hers, or a his and his signature cocktail, plus beer and wine. We're gonna go, you can do a tequila option and a bourbon option, make those 2 signature cocktails, and do a domestic and import option, possibly a local craft, depending on your guest list, and then a white wine and a red wine option. Again, most people are gonna opt for those cocktails. You're gonna wanna account to have more spirits than you will beer and wine. So 100 people, 4 hours for a wedding in the summer on a Saturday night. We'll go 8 bottles, 8 1-liter bottles of tequila and 8 1-liter bottles of bourbon. It just depends. Well, it just depends on the cocktail, because I can sit here and say that, but it's just like, okay, well, what kind of cocktails are you making? Because it's literally impossible to like sit there and tell somebody how much alcohol to get when I don't even know what the measurement is for the cocktail. As much as I want to give a number, like how can I? My best advice, and this is not to bait anybody, like, this is really just a helpful tool, helpful information, because I honestly get this question all the time before anybody gives me any details, or when they inquire about service and before we even talk about what the menu options are going to be, they're like, well, can you give me an estimate on how much the alcohol is going to cost? Or can you give me an estimate on how much alcohol I'll need? And it's just like, I can give you a general, no, I can't give you a general one, because it just depends. So alcohol cost, it depends on, the types of spirits and how much you're gonna get, and that's a whole nother video for a whole nother time. But as it stands for how much alcohol to get, I need to know what you're gonna serve, who you're serving, the type of event. Like, these are all things these are all details that are needed for a reason. So my best tip, my best bit of advice is to hire wherever you are in the world. And again, this is not to bait anybody, but that's what we're here for. That's what mobile bartending services are here for. We have the knowledge, we have the understanding, we have the experience in the way that people drink. So you're gonna wanna connect to whoever it is that's most local to you, after you do your research and you choose whoever you choose, because I'm gonna be honest, I can't even tell you anybody that's really gonna even share that type of information for free. Like, I don't even think that there's anybody that's gonna just like give you a shopping list without even booking them. Like that doesn't even, logically, that doesn't even make sense for somebody for a mobile bartending, for a mobile bartender or a mobile bartending service to even do that. Because it's just like, that knowledge is acquired over time, and that's not something that honestly should be given for free. I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. Yeah, so hire a mobile bartending service, and when you connect with whoever it is that you hire, they can better tell you and assist you in which direction to go and how much alcohol to actually get. If you have your mind made up, that's a different story. But again, your local mobile bartending service is the one to contact, and they will be the ones that are able to help you. Milk and Honey, we are located in Atlanta, Georgia. So if you're in Atlanta and you need mobile bartenders, feel free to contact us. Feel free to contact us at milkandhoneybartending.com. I'll put it in the description down below. You could contact me directly at cocktails@milkandhoneybartending.com, and you can share your event details with me, and I can share with you a customized shopping list, a customized shopping guide, and it'll include like all the details needed for planning your event bar. Now, also keep in mind, there is no fail-proof way of determining how much alcohol to actually buy. The way that I do it, for the most part, you're gonna end up with enough to serve everybody, but you will most likely have stuff left over. Not a whole lot left over, but just enough to like continue drinking once service ends, because I service to parties where they booked us for a certain amount of hours, but the party is still going, and people are wanting to drink. Or if it's at a venue, we'll just pack it up and then they'll take it and then use it for another time. Yeah, so ultimately there is no way to just determine, okay, yeah, you're gonna need this much. Okay, yeah, it's gonna cost this much, because I don't know. There's a huge difference between buying Tito's and buying Grey Goose. Ultimately, there's a difference between your bottom shelf spirits versus your top shelf spirits. So it just depends on what your budget is and what you intend to provide for your guest. Okay, so I mean, if you found this video helpful, somewhat helpful, give it a thumbs up. If you are kind of irritated that I did not give the answer to the question that you are seeking, I mean, just contact me. Contact me, cocktails@milkandhoneybartending.com. I am happy to provide you with a customized shopping guide. It's totally up to you, but I am here to say though, those Pinterest calculators and those alcohol calculators, nobody drinks like that. It's so many factors. And again, I cannot stress this enough. I cannot repeat myself enough. There is no way of giving a literal number on how much alcohol a person needs to buy without all the details. I need all of your event details in order to tell you exactly, estimate, in order to estimate how much alcohol you're gonna need to buy. So, I mean, you will save yourself a world of trouble, a world of time, and even money by simply just hiring somebody that knows what they're doing. Just hire somebody that knows what they're doing, and I mean, it's easy day. Unless you don't care about buying, overbuying, or whatever, stay away from those alcohol calculators, because like you're gonna end up just doing too much and causing yourself more unnecessary work.